Hey guys, and welcome back to A&J Education. In today's video, we have again Anna Pang, who's an undergraduate at UCL, which is called Bartlett, UCL Bartlett School of Architecture. Anna is here to talk about how to prepare the right personal statement, portfolio, how to prepare a drawing task for undergraduate admissions for architecture. Anna, it's great to have you with us. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Sunny. Thanks for having me again.
Great. All right, guys, let's go. In today's video, Anna's going to give a detailed breakdown and going to give you an overview of everything you need to know when you're applying for architecture and how to do those writing or art components. And at the end, we'll give her top 3 tips on how to just stay ahead of the game. So, Anna, should we start with personal statement? Because that's probably the first thing you do.
Oh, yeah.
Great. So most people, whether in the UK or internationally, do not study architecture at school, right? So, and in personal statement, the wisdom goes, you need to show your passion, your interest for the subject. So how can you show interest for the subject in something you've never studied?
So that's a great question. I think for your personal statement, it's always great to be personal, be unique to yourself. But for architecture, as you said, if you haven't done it before, it's really great to put in stuff such as other experiences. So work experience, it's always great to start looking for that really early. Or you can even sign up for online courses. If you start learning specific softwares, for example, really great to put that in because it just shows that you're starting early. But the general overview for the personal statement in terms of architecture, I think, is you need to show what you're interested in. And that can be perhaps a specific theme, such as, I don't know, time and space, music and space. There are so many different aspects you could be interested in, including things which are found online. So if you start reading magazines or books, maybe a year or 2 in advance, then you can get a really great head start on what to include. And that could be, it'd be really great to structure your personal statement sort of like an essay where you're really breaking down all the aspects you're interested in and therefore why they should pick you as a candidate.
It's interesting. I'm just gonna, if that's okay, I'm just gonna unpick some of the things you said. So, even though personal statement and the UCAS application deadline is 15th of January of the year when you're hoping to study, apart from Cambridge, which is 15th of October, but you said actually start a year or 2 early. So why is that? Why do you need to start early?
So I think because it is a subject that you won't have done before, starting early will just give you a head start on whether or not you're really interested in it, or perhaps what aspect you are interested in. Architecture, I think, has this sort of misconception as either being completely science-driven or art-driven. And in fact, it depends so much on which schools you're applying to or which sort of aspect that you want to really get yourself into. So it's really great to make those decisions earlier on, and you do that through reading or experiencing. And that includes going to galleries, or it includes visiting famous buildings, traveling, all good.
Okay. So, and you've mentioned, again, quite a few things that can go into the personal statement. So reading, work experience, visiting galleries, courses. So, first of all, youth unemployment is super high, and it's hard to get a work experience or internship anyway. Plus coronavirus, plus architecture is already very competitive. So, let's assume, I'm guessing minority of people watching this will be able to get work experience and internships, and that's fantastic. What about the majority? So let's say you have no money, no family contacts, no nepotism, that you can draw upon. So how do you, what do you put in your personal statement?
Okay, so you do not need anything other than your own passion to write your personal statement. So if you don't have work experience and stuff, you can still go online, watch YouTube videos, you can watch tutorials. If you're watching this, then you're already somewhat ahead. I think you can look at all the Bartlett books online. They're really helpful in terms of how you can represent architecture. You just need to find something that you want to talk about and that you are really passionate in. So Like I said, that doesn't have to be found through work experience. You can also subscribe to magazines such as Arc Daily or DZine. They're both super popular. And just get yourself really immersed in the subject, sort of establishing your own language or identity within it.
Okay. By the way, guys, obviously, apart from subscribing to the channel and checking us out on Instagram and Twitter, which are compulsory, joking, you should, Anna, if that's okay with you, would you share the links with me so that we can put them in the description of the video? Yeah, so we're going to put a bunch of resources, free resources or affordable resources that Anna's talking about, that you can use. But I just want to go back to your point that you need to start early, right? So starting this a month before is probably going to be counterproductive.
No, yeah, I would definitely recommend starting as early as you can. Of course, if you're sort of thinking a bit later on, there's always the opportunity also for foundation years. The Bartlett has a great foundation course as well, which I've heard from a lot of people. And yeah, starting early just really gets you into the game a bit better footed, rather than sort of being unsure of what you're doing. Like architecture is a very tough subject to do, and I wouldn't want to put anyone through that without them actually liking it.
Yeah. And as you're starting this process, let's say when you're, let's say you watch this video when you're 14, you've made the note, okay, start 2 years before, so you start at 15. How do you remember all this stuff? Do you start writing personal statement immediately, or how would, what would your advice be?
I would not. The personal statement, I think, will come naturally, but what's important is more just getting a hand on like what you're interested in, and it should be exciting. So you could explore architecture through film. You can explore architecture through like even comics, cartoons, even if it's the more engineering side you're interested in, there's also a whole like host of books that you can read about that. And you don't need to write your personal statement in order to understand it. It's just getting a sort of foot in earlier
on. Quite a few of our students have told us that it really helped them to keep a diary. So from 15, 16, when they see something or they go somewhere, they say, oh, whatever, October 2017, I've been to this museum, I saw this, I really liked it for X reasons, or I really disliked it, for Y reasons. And then it's sort of almost, after you have 20 or 30 of these recordings, it gives you kind of, because you forget stuff, right? And it gives you a guide, a guideline for what to put in your personal statement later.
Yeah. If you want to record things like that, it's also really great to have a sketchbook going. So whenever you visit places, you can start like doodling things you're interested in, making some notes. Also, if you're a bit more like digital, you could post stuff on Instagram that reminds you of it. That's quite a nice way to get started and shows your interest to like potential employees or other people as well. It's just great to get sort of like bullet points going, perhaps, for your personal statement.
No, great. Okay. So let's say you've done your personal statement, right? And your teacher has written your reference, and again, would you recommend that you talk to your teachers about your ambitions in the application beforehand?
Yeah. So what I think is really a really great tip, if you can talk to your teachers more freely, is to sort of maybe show them your personal statement or talk about what you're interested in beforehand. So say like, oh, I'm interested in architecture. Do you have any advice? What I tend to find is that if you start talking to people about it, then like opportunities will appear sooner or later. You'll perhaps maybe they know someone who did architecture, or perhaps they just have an interest in it. It's always really great to get a discussion going. And then when they come to writing your reference, they will already know sort of what angle you're aiming towards or what you're interested in.
Just to add from my experience, teachers at school, they often have 100+ kids in a year, plus they have their wife, husband, their own children, their mum and dad who they have to look after, basically life. And so your application, even though it's the biggest deal in the world to you, is actually a fairly minor deal to them, if any deal at all. So starting the conversation early and not leaving it till the last minute and then 3 weeks before, a month before, kind of pestering them, but starting that early, starting a year out, saying, listen, during the holidays, I've been to this museum, I've done this sketch, I've done X, Y, Z. It kind of plants the seed in their head with the idea that you're someone who's motivated, you're someone who's really keen. And so when it comes to writing the reference, they almost take you more seriously than a lot of the other applicants who leave this till the last minute and then just say, hey, write me a good reference.
Definitely, yeah.
So you've done the personal statement, done the reference. Then some universities send you a drawing task or some sort of like a preliminary task, right?
Yeah. So because for architecture it's a lot of like coursework based marking, they will often send you a task to see your portfolio. So for the Bartlett, that comes in the form of stage 1 drawing task, which later may lead to portfolio presentation. Other universities such as Cambridge, they might ask for the writing, like a little bit of writing task. There's also, I think for Nottingham, I think they ask for a digital portfolio submission. It varies depending on which university you apply for, but they will normally ask to see some sort of portfolio put together.
Okay. And I'm guessing the work you've been doing for personal statement can also be used for this stage as well.
As in the sketchbook notes, or
yeah.
So any work that you've done to show that you're interested in, it's great to put in your portfolio. But the portfolio, I think, is better to be a more choreographed piece of work. So you can include sketchbooks, you can include maybe things that you've done at A-level or GCSE art that you think are really great in the form of like big books. But what I find is that when you go to present them, there is a time limit, and these universities look through so many applications. You don't want to have anything that's lost within it. So what's really great for preparing your portfolio is to have your key pieces or your sort of show pieces really like separate. So get them printed large, or just have them as pullouts from your sketchbook. I think that's a really great way to do it.
No, interesting. Okay, so you've done that, and then some universities invite you to submit some extra work, right?
Yeah. So the drawing task for the Bartlett will lead to the portfolio stage, which would be sort of round 2. That's when you go to the university typically to present your work. Similarly, Cambridge also does this, or I think perhaps Reading. And on these occasions, you take your physical portfolio to the university and present your work, normally followed by an interview of some sort. Of course, this year it will probably be done over Zoom, but sort of that. Right?
So it's almost this stage 2 in Bartlett, which is presentation of portfolio in at UCL, is pretty much stage 1 in other universities that do not have this drawing task.
Yeah. So most universities will ask for sort of one task, but then the Bartlett or Cambridge, I suppose, because they're a bit more competitive, will ask for these 2 separate things to submit.
Okay. And how do you put it together?
So the portfolio, I think, should normally be accumulation of your sort of artwork in terms of your art A-level, art GCSE, perhaps design tech, if that's something that you've been doing. And you can also include stuff that you've done during work experiences or sketchbooks you do in your free time, such as sketch diaries. I think what you do to start with is you collect all the work that you're considering. Like, it can be quite daunting. No one really knows how to put a portfolio together, but just collect all of your information first, and then you can start to boil it down into which are the key pieces. Universities will often send you requirements or guidelines for how many pieces to include or what sort of things to include. And this is where you can start to pick out your favorite things. And you can also ask teachers or parents or friends just for their intake, maybe which pieces do they prefer. And this is where you sort of start to begin like really clarifying your own ideas, because your portfolio should be a narrative of your work. That means including stuff that you've done to do with like research into a specific topic, or it could be experimentation with certain mediums. So sculptures, for example, I've had students that do a lot of like installation pieces, or there's also paintings, etc. And yeah, you sort of, once you've collected the pieces that you want, then you start to lay it out. So this is completely up to your own sort of interests or what you like. But typically, if you were doing a physical portfolio, this could be like A2, A1 printouts or original paintings, original drawings. And it's quite nice to mount them up sort of to make them look quite clean. And in formatting drawings, you're just making it seem quite proper, like you want to be taken seriously. And it can be helpful to put a little title or a little description of it. But the general idea is that once you have your pieces, the laying out part should just be to finesse it and clarify what you're trying to communicate to whoever you're showing it to.
And am I correct that, for example, if in your personal statement you talk a lot about how sculpture has influenced you and the various sort of museums and sculptures that you saw and that you reflect on, it would be weird if you don't have any sculpture in your portfolio then, right?
Definitely. I think as long as you're writing your personal statement sincerely, then it should sort of naturally flow into your portfolio. But yes, if you're talking about I really like, I don't know, Zaha Hadid and these kind of things in your personal statement, I wouldn't make a portfolio that's completely brutalist and stick lines. But it doesn't have to be completely the same. Just show that it's the same person doing it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. Great. Well, listen, this has been super helpful. Just before we wrap up, could you give us 3 top tips? So if you're an applicant, prospective student, and you're thinking of applying for architecture and you need a personal statement, portfolio, perhaps a drawing task, what would your top 3 tips be for these applicants?
Okay, top 3 tips. Step 1, I think, do your research, figure out what universities are asking for. So if you need to do a drawing task, if you need to submit a portfolio, figure that out before you apply, perhaps. Step 2, sort of definitely start early. That can be through doing the sketch diary or little Instagram posts. It's just a great exercise in figuring out how to represent things and what you're actually interested in. And step 3 is when you're putting together your portfolio, don't be afraid to edit work. So you don't have to put in everything originally as it was when you created it. For example, if you have a piece from a few years back, you can still revive it and then bring it in again, if that's what you're interested in.
Okay, great. Anna, thanks so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. And all the best.
Thanks.